This episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest way to play season-long fantasy football. Underdog Fantasy sets your perfect lineup at the end of each week, so no management and no Tuesday nights on the waiver wire. All you do is the most fun part. Draft the best team and win cold, hard cash. Play now at UnderdogFantasy.com, and they'll match your first deposit up to $100 if you use code SPOTIFY.
Empire. The revenue streams are becoming endless.
Crypto in and of itself has disrupted the sports marketplace. The crypto category became last year the number 2 category in sports sponsorship, spending billions of dollars.
That's Matt Kaufman, Vice President of Consulting at the Montag Group, where modern marketing is finding various viable outlets. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. We like to have these state of the industry talks every so often to get the perspective of those who are right in the middle of brokering major alliances. Matt Kaufman has been in big-time sports marketing for a long time, so we emptied the bucket on what is currently presenting major opportunity and what's to come down the road. Our guest this week is Matt Kaufman. He's the Vice President of Consulting at the Montag Group, which is an industry leader in talent representation, media communications, content creation, and for the purpose of this discussion, strategic consulting in a very new world of professional and collegiate sports. Hi, Matt. How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I don't even know where to start. I think we could just kind of go through the laundry list of things that are happening in our world. But since college football is kicking off and the NCAA and the conferences are going through major changes right now, just broadly, before we kind of get into all the nitty gritty of it, what do you and a company like the Montag Group think about when you see all these changes with conferences?
We see opportunity, and we think that it's an incredibly shifting landscape. And for schools and conferences and broadcasters and content distributors, the players themselves, there's never been a more dynamic time in the collegiate sports landscape. And we see it as a time of opportunity, and we're working directly with conferences. We advise the Big Ten. Kevin Warren is a client of ours who's been, right in the middle of all this cataclysmic change. We also advise schools directly, and we see it as just a time where entities, properties, and athletes can make significant change and seize the opportunity.
When you hear the term, there will be haves, and they're in mega conferences, and there's going to be some have-nots, and there'll be some brands that people know. They're going to be on the outside of this stuff looking in a little bit. How do you kind of think through that as we peer into collegiate sports in the next 3, 5, 10 years?
I think we're seeing it right now. You're seeing it with the shift of UCLA and USC to the Big Ten. And we know that there are conferences that are looking to expand and acquire new members. We know that there are schools who are actively out there evaluating where they fit best. There are broadcasts now evaluating, what's in their best interest in terms of creating content for their platforms, both the traditional platforms as well as the streaming platforms. So I definitely think there will be haves and have-nots, and even in the world of NIL, the haves in the schools that are able to offer those opportunities to athletes are going to continue to separate themselves, and those that do not, will separate to the bottom.
How are you advising schools, athletes, if you're going on that level, coaches, programs, on name, image, and likeness as we wait for whatever the guardrails are going to be in and around it?
So I think from a school perspective, and we've dealt with a number of schools on specific programs. We have an NFT partner as an example. They're in the process of launching half a dozen school programs with the likes of Michigan State, Illinois, Syracuse, University of Michigan, and others. And we're talking to those schools about the potential to use NIL, in this case with a specific product, to not only drive revenue for the school, using their marks and their intellectual property, but also for their student athletes. And I can tell you that's absolutely resonating with the schools. Some are being more progressive in what they want to do, and more aggressive. But all of them, are having to figure this out, because you have to, again, seize that opportunity today. And if you don't, it goes back to that point you made earlier, there's going to be this separation. And if you're not trying to figure it out actively, you're going to get left behind in that separation.
Let me ask what you're seeing now. Your group, like many like yours, work with major brands. Just because the door is open to approach athletes and work with them and market with them doesn't mean that they have to or are going to. So, what is the reality with the brands now that this opportunity is in front of them? How are they viewing it in working with collegiate athletes?
Yeah, I think it goes back fundamentally to their strategy as a brand. What are they trying to achieve? Does the collegiate market represent an opportunity that's aligned with their sports marketing and overall brand strategy? And if it is, you can't ignore NIL right now. And you at least have to evaluate, can individual players or collectively group rights of players, at a certain school, can they help you drive your business goals and your business objectives? And it's available. There is risk in it, of course, because it's new, and these players, many of them, it's the first time they're doing anything on a commercial level and an endorsement level. But it cannot be ignored if it aligns with your business strategy.
Okay. You mentioned media rights. Obviously, there's a lot of news about that. You mentioned the Big Ten as well. They just signed a massive one with a number of different networks. What's just the Montag Group's and your group's view right now of where media rights are going? And I know that's a very broad question with not only just with collegiate sports, but with people like Amazon and Google and Apple getting actively involved in live production of sports. What's just your general reaction to what is happening in the media space?
So, my personal view, and I would say our view collectively as a company is, we are seeing the shift and have been for a while. It's, of course, not instant, right? It's an evolution. We're seeing that with the streaming partners getting more deeply involved, the non-traditional direct-to-consumer players buying rights and getting involved in sports to create content for their platforms. And that content is proving exceptionally valuable to grow their subscriber base, to grow their engagement. And from a property standpoint, we're seeing this as well. Everyone is starting to get more deeply involved with these partners or adjacent partners to the traditional linear broadcast entities. And we just see this continuing, and our perspective is, my perspective is, it's something they need to continue to do. Every deal should contemplate it and have, a new direct-to-consumer streaming partner in some capacity. You have to be involved. You have to start catering to that channel. And, it's this slow evolution, and these first steps will take you a long way down the road as this continues to evolve. That said, the traditional broadcast, and you saw it with the deal the Big Ten did, is alive and well and thriving. And it's not going to go away anytime soon. It's going to be this balance over time.
Yeah, I would imagine that the games still matter and the production of the games still matter. It may be reinvented how it's presented, but the games, even with changing appetites for how long younger generations will watch and tune in, the games still matter, right?
Absolutely, the games still matter. But I think you bring up a really important point, and it's something just as a sports fan and a sports marketer that continue to think about and candidly contemplate how this will end for this next generation of sport fans, because they don't often watch a full game. Football, certainly baseball, even basketball. We're just seeing that more and more, that they consume it in a different way. The evolution of sports production, sports content delivery, is evolving with them, but I don't know if it's evolving fast enough. We're going to get to this inflection point, when this new generation of younger fans comes into their own. We're looking at a scenario where they're truly not consuming these full game broadcasts, and new platforms, new distribution, new content packages will continue to evolve and become even more important.
Yeah, presentation will be very interesting to watch here as they try to reach younger modern fans.
This episode is brought to you by Samsung. Unfold the all-new Galaxy Z Fold 4 and expand your world. With Flex Mode, it stands on its own, so you're hands-free to get more done during calls. And with multi-window view, you can use up to 3 apps at the same time. Plus, the edge-to-edge screen allows you to fully immerse yourself in your favorite games and shows. Visit Samsung.com to learn more about Galaxy Z Fold 4.
Let's get into some of the technology that you guys work with, and I'll start with just a few buckets, and you can be specific about startups that your group works with, or just broadly if you want to talk about them. NFTs. Where do you see NFTs now that the market's been flooded with them?
I'm a huge believer in NFTs. This world of digital collectibles, which is much more a much easier way for many people to think about it, because the idea of an NFT, they don't really necessarily comprehend, or the reality of what the blockchain is. I definitely see it here to stay. I certainly see it evolving over time. It's early days. We have an NFT partner we've been working with, a company called Fantastic. They're a UK-based company. They've been around for many years, doing NFTs for Arsenal, Real Madrid, major European football entities. We help them launch into the U.S. They're launching specifically around collegiate sports. We help them build and create those relationships with a dozen different teams, 6 of which will be launching this fall for football. But even with Fantastic, our client, we often talk about this as the first step. And when we talk to entities, they want to do NFTs, but they also realize the NFT is not the end. It's just the beginning.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot of people that are in this now. I agree with you. It feels like we're in the first inning of this, that it's really going to be about utility, that this started as novel. In some ways, the market shaped up almost like rare art. And then suddenly there's this floodgate of them. So what do you think fans will value in NFTs as we move forward here?
There's a couple areas to contemplate here. Of course, you've got the crypto speculators, and we saw that with NBA Top Shot, and we saw that with our client in Fantastic. You have speculators buying Arsenal and Real Madrid NFTs as true crypto speculators, hoping they buy an NFT and it goes up and they can sell it, and make money. Because of the reality of collectibles, I think that will continue to some degree across any NFT platform that has true intellectual property and value that they can deliver to a fan. But I think on the other side, you have the fan. And the ability for NFTs, and more broadly, the blockchain to create engagement opportunities for fans. Where you have both the digital, getting into Web 3.0 and the Metaverse, and experiential. And that's really where I see this going. NFTs are just a piece of this, from fan tokens to NFTs to the other things that are happening. This is just early stages of creating fan community. Again, I think you'll have this fan community continuing to build and grow around the digital ecosystem. And of course, you're still going to always have collectors and speculators to some degree.
You've been working with blockchain technology companies as well. My point of view is it's got massive upside, especially in sports and building community and transactions. And it might not be the most exciting part of sports, but it's going to fuel the commerce of it. How do you kind of view blockchain technology in and around big time sports?
I agree with you. I think, blockchain is the big disruptor. And we're seeing it again, early days, with NFTs and, certainly crypto. Crypto in and of itself has disrupted the sports marketplace. The crypto category became last year the number 2 category in sports sponsorship, spending billions of dollars. A myriad of companies investing in sports to grow and promote their products and services. So that alone, the blockchain as the underpinning, has disrupted sports in a way that we haven't seen in many years. And then from a product application and a fan opportunity perspective, I see more and more applications coming out of blockchain that will continue to disrupt sports in a variety of ways that we're seeing the early stages of now, like NFTs, and certainly things we can't even imagine to sit here today that may be reality in 12 to 18 months.
Are you seeing any slowing of the sponsorship money or the partnerships in crypto based on what happened in the marketplace a few months ago with the crypto winter, if that's what you want to call it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're actually seeing some of these bigger players backing out of deals, jersey patch deals, naming rights deals. They went a little wild, to be candid with you. We had conversations with a number of these crypto companies with the hopes of advising them because it was a little bit of the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
It was a land grab. They were spending, some might say like drunken sailors, without a real strategy. And we're absolutely seeing a pullback. We're seeing them cancel deals, cut spending. I certainly don't think you're going to see spending and growth at the level that we saw in the past year, which was a record year and disruptive year.
Let's get into fan engagement. You work with companies that are in those technologies as well. What are they thinking about with modern and older fans in the modern era?
So I think it's, for a lot of our companies, it's about enhancing the fan experience, different ways to engage fans and consumers with sports content or innovative content or innovative viewer or fan live experiences. And, we're still finding that there's many, many great innovative sports technologies and startups in this space. We're still finding that the leagues, the broadcast networks, the teams as well, even though they don't have quite the budgets, but the teams as well are still craving new ways to engage and reach their fans. That's an area that we play in extensively, is identifying these great technologies and helping accelerate them into the marketplace.
How about gaming gambling? How involved is the Montag Group in consulting, whether it's the gaming gambling outlets themselves or the media providers, and how to integrate it, and where is that right now? Gambling
has been another massive boom for the industry, with obviously the change in regulation, the acceleration of a number of the major gaming companies, the consolidation of these gaming companies, the leagues doing deals with these gaming companies. And I was on a call just yesterday with one of the senior leaders at one of the major broadcasters, and they talked about gambling like it's here and it's going to continue to grow, and it's a priority for every network, every league. And ultimately, it's about the revenue. It comes down to the revenue. We don't work directly with any gambling companies, but we have technology clients whose technologies can help accelerate gambling across the fan base. So there's certainly the gambling companies themselves, but there are all these adjacent technologies and services that will help accelerate betting, drive fan engagement, and drive revenue for everyone involved.
All right, Matt, before I let you go, am I missing anything? Is there something you guys are working on that you expected me to ask you about that I've overlooked here at this point?
I think this is one of the most fascinating times in sports. I've been in the business for 25 plus years. Between what's happening with content and distribution, you mentioned gambling, which has disrupted our industry. You talked about blockchain. We didn't touch too deeply on the metaverse, which I expected you to ask. I see blockchain is, related to that in a sense, but that's another area that everyone is thinking about and trying to figure out, which holds huge potential, but is also very undefined, of course, at this point.
Let's stay on that just for a moment then. One, to you, what is the metaverse? And two, how does big time sports interact with it currently?
It's interesting because I think there's not a clear definition across the board. Certainly when we talk to different entities, whether it's leagues or TV networks, everyone's doing it a little differently. I'll give you an example. We were talking to one of the major college sports programs, and they are actively trying to figure out their strategy for the metaverse. And for us, it's really about how do you use this alternate experience to engage and grow your fan base, and of course drive revenue. And even at the college level for these major programs, they are trying to figure out a comprehensive strategy. It looks at this so they can start. They can dip their toe in the water and do some things to get them involved. But it's so new and will evolve so significantly that it's very difficult to set a 1, 3, 5 year strategy in this space.
Matt Kaufman is the Vice President of Consulting with the Montag Group. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Bram. Appreciate it.
That will do it for this episode. As always, the future is now. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein.